They always made it clear who the favorite was. Growing up, it was subtle. Extra praise for my younger brother's drawings even when mine won school contests, more leniency when he stayed out late, and constant reminders that he's just a boy when he messed up. But I tried not to let it break me. I learned to celebrate my small wins alone. I grew independent, strong, and eventually used the isolation to build a life of my own. Still, deep down, I clung to this fragile hope that when it came to my wedding day, my parents would finally show up. Not just physically, but emotionally too. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. Jake proposed under a rain of fairy lights in our backyard. It was intimate and honest, two things I'd never had in my childhood. We planned a simple yet beautiful wedding, filled with meaning. I imagined my mom helping me choose my dress. I imagined my dad walking me down the aisle. I imagined, despite everything, that they'd rise to the occasion, that they'd treat this moment like the milestone it was. I sent the invitations early. I called to confirm. My mom sounded distracted on the phone. "Oh, when is it again?" she asked, as if I were telling her the date of a dentist appointment. I brushed it off, thinking she was just busy. But a week before the wedding, the truth came out. She called again, this time casually, like she was talking about weather. "Sweetheart, we can't make it to the wedding. You know your brother's 25th birthday falls on the same weekend. And well, your dad and I already booked a flight to Vegas to surprise him. First class, of course. He deserves it. He's had such a stressful year." I froze. "You're skipping my wedding for a birthday?" There was a pause, then laughter. "Honey, it's just a wedding. You already live with Jake, don't you? It's not like anything's changing. Don't be so dramatic." I felt my chest cave in. The silence between us stretched like a canyon. I whispered, "I wanted you there." Her reply was immediate and dismissive. "Oh, don't make this about you. We'll FaceTime if you want, but seriously, don't guilt us." Jake saw my face fall as I ended the call. He didn't ask anything, he just pulled me into a hug. "I'll be there," he whispered. "And so will everyone who loves you for real." I should have known better. I really should have. But it didn't make the rejection sting any less. On the day of the wedding, I walked down the aisle with my godfather. I held my bouquet with trembling fingers, blinking away the ache that wanted to ruin my mascara. My heart was a strange cocktail of love and grief. The room was full of warmth, friends who traveled far, Jake's family who cheered like I was one of their own. But there was a hollow space where my parents should have been. I spotted an empty chair. I hated that my eyes kept drifting to it. They posted photos that same day. My parents, smiling with cocktails in their hands, surrounded by slot machines, standing next to my brother at a lavish dinner. Hashtags like #FamilyFirst and #ProudParents filled the caption. And still, not one message to me, not even a quick congratulations. That night, I cried. Not for their absence, but for all the years I had wasted hoping they'd change. But something inside me shifted after that day. Something important. For the first time, I saw the truth without trying to soften its edges. And I knew that if they thought my wedding was not a big deal, then maybe I wasn't the one being selfish. Maybe they were just too blind to see the woman I had become. I didn't confront them, not right away. I just became quieter, colder. Not cruel, but controlled. I stopped sending weekly updates. I stopped trying to impress them. I stopped apologizing for not being their idea of a perfect daughter. And that's when things began to change, but not in the way they expected. They thought their choices would blow over like always. But I had a different kind of surprise for them, one that made them feel every inch of what they missed. Let me tell you how. The months following my wedding were quieter than I had expected. Not in a peaceful way, but in that eerie kind of silence that lingers after someone has slammed the door and walked out of your life. Except, in this case, they were the ones who chose to walk away, and I was left picking up the silence like shattered glass. Jake and I returned from our honeymoon, still glowing with the warmth of our small but intimate ceremony. The pictures were beautiful, the vows were real, and the love in the room was something no amount of money or approval could buy. But the hole where my parents should have been, that remained. I didn't expect them to call, but some childish part of me kept hoping they'd at least acknowledge it happened, that they'd ask how it went, or if we were happy, or even fake interest just for the sake of decency. But they didn't. Not a word. Not even a like on the one photo I dared to post. It was as if my wedding had vanished into thin air. Then, 3 weeks later, my brother uploaded a slideshow of his birthday celebration. The same one for which my parents flew across the country in first class. Balloons, banners, a cake the size of a bathtub, luxury gifts, and, of course, my parents in every other photo, smiling, laughing, wrapped around him like he was the sun, and they were just grateful planets allowed to orbit. The most painful part? My father's toast. We'll always show up for our son. He knows family comes first. I watched it on mute, the sting sharp enough to take the breath out of my lungs. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a one-time oversight or some scheduling conflict. This was deliberate. They had chosen, and it wasn't me. I didn't scream. I didn't send paragraphs. I didn't beg to be seen. Instead, I decided to protect the peace I had finally found. Jake deserved that. I deserved that. So I stepped back, quietly. I stopped texting first. I stopped visiting. I stopped being the one who reached out on every holiday while they continued to give me half-hearted responses and make grand gestures for my brother. I let the silence they gave me become a boundary instead of a burden. A year later, I was pregnant. And that changed everything. Not because they suddenly woke up and transformed into caring parents. No, it changed everything because it made me realize I wasn't just doing this for me anymore. I had a child on the way, and I had to decide what kind of legacy I wanted to pass down. Jake was ecstatic. He painted the nursery himself, read every book, even cried during our first ultrasound. His parents, who had attended our wedding and treated me like family from day one, were overjoyed. His mom knitted little hats. His dad built a wooden cradle. And my parents? They found out through a Facebook post. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from my mother. "We just saw the news. You're pregnant? You didn't tell us?" Her voice was brittle with something between confusion and entitlement. I didn't respond. Another call came, this time from my father. "You're being unfair. This is our grandchild too. We have a right to be part of this." And that was the moment it hit me. They only want to show up for what benefits them. Not for my milestones, not for my heartbreaks or happiness, but for the things they can brag about, for the photos, for the title of grandparents, not the role itself. So, I wrote them an email. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. I told them everything I had bottled up, every silent ache, every moment they dismissed, every time they chose convenience or comfort over presence and love. I reminded them they skipped my wedding and called it not a big deal, then flew first class to a birthday party. I told them love isn't something you get to claim when it's convenient. It's something you show up for, messy, complicated, uncomfortable, and all. I ended the email with this: "You made your priorities clear. And now I'm making mine. My child will grow up surrounded by love, not favoritism. You are welcome to earn a place in their life, but it will not be handed to you simply because you share our blood." Weeks passed. No reply, no apology, just more silence. But this time, it didn't hurt. This time, it felt like closure. When our daughter was born, I didn't call them. I didn't send photos. I didn't update them. And I didn't feel guilty. I held my baby in my arms, looked into her soft, curious eyes, and promised her that she would never feel the kind of pain I once did, the pain of chasing love that should have been freely given. But life has a way of circling back. 6 months later, my parents showed up at our front door. No call, no warning. Just stood there with a gift bag and awkward smiles, as if 6 months of silence could be patched with a stuffed animal and a cheap card. I stepped outside. I didn't let them in. They said they missed us. They said they wanted to be involved. They said they didn't realize how much they'd hurt me. And maybe that was true. Maybe they really didn't understand. But that wasn't my responsibility anymore. So I smiled gently, held my daughter close to my chest, and said, "It's just a visit. Not a big deal." They flinched. And just like that, they finally understood what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. Not because I wanted revenge, but because they needed to feel what they had made me feel so they'd never do it again. Love is not a switch you flip on when it suits you. It's a steady light. And in my home, that light stays on, but only for those who show up when it matters